So, Chevre, my friends, let's find our seats. I love the chit chat in the sanctuary. It actually brings me back to my days of being in the synagogue. I spent most of my time talking with my friends, and yet it led me to this sacred space on this path. So, I want to welcome you to our special Shabbat concert featuring the Yoni Avi Battat Ensemble. You might see some additional familiar faces here, including Yoni's wife, Leah Carnot, who's an Erev Rav. She's going to be ordained as a rabbi any minute and will be serving our sister community, Temple Beth Zion, down the street in Brookline. And what? It's a long street, but it's not that far away. And she's been here before, leading us in Israeli folk dance. And also Rebecca Mack on violin, who's been here with us for High Holy Days in the past as well. And Jesse and Yoni helped lead services. And we have Fabio and also James, who are joining us. And Yoni will be introducing them further in a minute, but just a little bit more about this exquisite ensemble before we begin. Yoni invites listeners to indulge in the oneness of past and future and experience the heart connection and deep spirituality of sharing a musical moment together. For Yoni, music has always been more than a profession. It is a deep and core element of his spiritual life and personal Jewish practice. Besides his extensive work as a synagogue musician, Yoni has also experienced profound and holy moments leading Jewish chanting. He took part in Hadar's Rising Song Fellowship and was named the first ever Community Creative Fellow, an initiative by the Jewish Arts Collaborative and CJP in Boston, which enabled the development of his debut solo album, Fragments, which you'll hear tonight. As a member of the Nava Tehillah community in Jerusalem, and then subsequently on tour as their violinist, Yoni has witnessed again and again how communal singing can powerfully transform community and foster spiritual connection. At the heart of Yoni's musical identity lies a deep investment in world music and improvisation. At Brandeis University, go Judges, he studied Yiddish language and culture, and since then he has performed with groups like the Israel Klezmer Orchestra and Die Gassen Trio, as well as world-renowned artists such as Cookie Siegelstein and Christina Crowder. He's also spent years founding and leading his own groups, which culminated in the development of a Yiddish jazz band, Two Shekel Swing, which I believe was here for, with Jesse, for Simchat Torah a few years back. So whether in the synagogue or the concert hall, sharing an experience of true beauty is what Yoni believes creates community amongst strangers and brings hope and holiness into a world that truly needs it. Let's please give a warm TBE welcome to our friends from the Yoni Avi Battat Ensemble.
فعلى الفرات طفولتي قد أزهرت وبدجلة نايل الشباب الريقا قلبي بحبي باني العروبة يخفق وفمي بالضادهم يشيد وينطق أولست منهم منبتا وأرومة قد ضمن الماضي البعيد الأوثق ربطت مصائرنا الحياة بموطن هو ماؤنا وهواؤنا والرونق. غبت وما غبت عن ضميري وصرت فرحتي وسروري وانفصل الفصل بافتراق فصار في غيبتي حضوري. Geweest, keiner darf mich nicht davon dem'oile. Mich wird der Bettler auf dem jüdischen Beisoile. Wer der verliebt und noch dazu afide. Kirov ma'aseinu tov בימי חיינו הבל לפניך. فأنت في سر غيبي هامي أخفي من الوهم في ضميري تؤنسني بالنهار حقا وأنت عند الدجى سميري تؤنسني بالنهار حقا وأنت عند الدجى سميري. Wo ist das Hoffnungslose auf der Erde steht? Unendlich ist nur das, was muss vergehen. Und nur, ach, nur ist neridisch, hier auf Maaseinu tov, בימי חיינו הבל לפניך. Wow, so special to be here. Thank you so much for coming. The two pieces you just heard, I started with what's called a mawal, which is a vocal improvisation that used a text from an Iraqi Jewish poet named Anwar Shaul, who was a really amazing figure. He represented Iraq in the National Conference of Arab Jewish Writers in 1969. Also of note is that he stayed in Iraq much longer than a lot of the Jewish community did. He stayed until 1972. And in this poem that he wrote, you saw the lyrics, he expresses such a beautiful yearning and love for his homeland, for the waters of the Tigris and Euphrates, for these places that and fixtures of his memory that are an important part of who he is and what connects him to other people in that land as well. And one line I want to just point out about that is he says, "My mouth proudly speaks their dod." He says the Arabic language, but the word he uses in Arabic is dod. Dod is a letter, like A, B, C, D, right? An Arabic letter that sound only exists in Arabic. It's like a D with like the back of your tongue raised a little bit. Do. It's like a guttural D. Do. And what he said is, "My mouth proudly speaks their do," not like their language, but he said it in a way that to me is so embodied and visceral, and something that I can really relate to in my own journey as I've been slowly uncovering the music of my ancestry and learning to speak Arabic, learning this musical style. And it's been a long journey, and I can relate to him, to Anwar Shaul. There's a lot that is different between me and him. I did not grow up on the waters of the Tigris. Here I am reciting it as if it's my experience. But it's not true. But I can use my imagination to take me there, and I can use the feeling of the dod in my mouth to connect me with my ancestry. And then the second piece you heard is what I presented in services earlier, Vapor, which combines this Sufi poem from the 10th century with a Yiddish poem from the 20th century and a bit of Hebrew text from Ecclesiastes. Just wondering about presence and absence and our fleeting experience here on this earth in the expanse of time. So I told you a little bit about this dod and like imagining the river, and like these are some of the tools that I've been using to try and connect with my ancestors in Iraq. And I don't have a lot of facts and details. I don't know exactly where they lived. I don't know the exact story. A lot of those details didn't make it to me. There's an imperfect transmission of memory, of course. And beyond that, some things were purposefully withheld, I think. You know, you decide what you want to transmit to the next generation, and some things you don't really want to transmit. And so, despite that, I'm using these different avenues of imaginatory and sensory ways of connecting with ancestry. So for me, like imagining like running my hands through the river is like, even though I've never been there and I've never experienced it, it's a real embodied way of being able to put myself there. And it gives me that true and real felt sense of connection and wholeness. Another thing that really does that is food. Anyone else have like a family recipe that brings them back and connects them with a particular person maybe, or another generation? For me, one of those foods is kuba. Kuba is like a Iraqi dumpling. We have kibbi, kuba in a lot of different cultures, but kuba, with that pronunciation, and especially in a sauce made out of beets. I know you thought only Russians ate beet soup, but it's not true. Iraqis also eat beets. And so I've tried to make that food so that I can connect with my ancestry. And I love to cook, and I'm pretty good at it, I think, but this is one dish I can't quite get right. Our histories are torn like shards of mint, each piece perfumed with memory. bursting imagination fills the cracks with the rushing realness of your essence. Where do I start? How do I learn? You seem so far, and so I yearn to burn my tongue on sauce just right, to feel you here in every bite. Parsley and mint, lemon and beets, Battat and dates, it gives something sweet. Your scribbled notes are guiding the way. If you were here, what would you say? شوي شوي بدالك خذها على كيفك عمري، حس العجين عيوني خليه على ايدك حبيبي، حس العجين عيوني خليه على ايدك حبيبي. The dough won't hold, the feel's not right. Is it too wet? Is it too dry? It falls apart. I can't explain. Without your hands, it's not the same. How will I know? By look, by touch. A recipe is not enough to keep what's left from fading away. If you were here, what would you say? شوي شوي بدالك خدها على كيفك عمري، حس العجين عيوني خليه على ايدك حبيبي، حس العجين عيوني خليه على ايدك حبيبي. شوي شوي بدالك خذها على كيفك عمري، حس العجين عيوني خليه على ايدك حبيبي، حس العجين عيوني خليه على ايدك حبيبي. So language is language is such an important way of connecting with our ancestry and to feeling this embodied connection with our past. And in that last song, I use the word abdalak. I say in the chorus, shwai shwai abdalak. Abdalak is a word that my grandmother used to say to me. It wasn't until like a couple of years ago that I found out what it means. I knew it was a loving word. It was a term of endearment, of course. But I learned what it means. It means abid alek, abid ilak, which means abid like eved, like a slave, and ilak to you. She was saying, I am your slave, which tickles me now. It's just like a certain level of love and affection and commitment and devotion to a loved one that to me is just like so endearing. And she used to say, I am your slave. And I never thought of it that way, but. And this next song is a song that comes from a Iraqi Jewish composer named Salah al-Kuwaiti. Salah al-Kuwaiti wrote music for a lot of the stars of the Arab world. You've heard of Kulthum. He wrote music for Kulthum, who's the voice of Egypt. Abdul Wahab, Muhammad Abdul Wahab, who's known across the Arab world. And also people in Iraq, such as Nazim al-Ghazali and Salim al-Murad, are two of like the two very famous Iraqi singers of that generation. And this song they wrote for Nazim al-Ghazali. On first read, like a lot of songs, and especially songs from this era, it's a pretty dramatic, like, love and loss song, about being left. And in the context of this project, I'm always looking for new ways to recontextualize different things, and I want to invite you also, as you're listening to this and reading the lyrics about, it says, it's not fair of you to be gone for so long, that your absence lasts this long. What am I going to say when people ask me about you? And I think when they wrote it, they were probably talking about a woman. But I want to invite you during this song to just think about, what's the thing missing for you? And maybe we can find some healing and wholeness around that. And afterwards, I'll tell you what it means to me. هذا مو انصاف منك غيبتك هالقد تطول الناس لو تسألني عنك شرد جاوبهم شقول الناس لو تسألني عنك شرد جاوبهم شقول ألف حاف والف وصفة مثلك يخون ويا والفا ألف حاف والف وصفة مثلك يخون ويا والفا لا تيذن قلبي يشفى لا ولا منا يزول عتيد قلبي يشفى والألم منا يزول الناس لو تسألني عنك شرد جاوبهم شقول قلبي خليته يتشوى بنار هجرانك تلاوى قلبي خليته يتشوى بنار هجرانك تلاوى عظيم منك مروى لا ولا منك أصول هذيم منك مروى لا ولا منك أصول الناس لو تسألني عنك شردجا وبهم شاقول. So for me, that song is about the Arabic language. I've had this experience, I talked about a little bit about this in during the Kavat Shabbat service, of learning Arabic, but learning it just like any old schmo would learn Arabic, right? Not someone whose family comes from Iraq and who heard Arabic growing up, but like anyone who had an interest in any random language learned it in the same exact way that I did. And that was a pretty painful experience, and it still remains painful that this sound that has been such an important part of like my family lineage within the matter of a generation or two has been lost. And that's really painful. And it's something I'm working with, and I'm getting better at Arabic, and that's also encouraging. But it's a moment to like kind of reflect. A lot of this music is very reflective. It's a moment to reflect on so much that can be lost. Like we're in this modern civilization, and we live in amazing modern countries with amazing modern cars and computers, and also we live in like states, right? And we live in like in groups of people that have left other people out. And this is a process that has happened across the world to a lot of different people. And in my case, there's a certain level of the fact that Arab identity and Arabness has been stripped of my ancestors. And their Jewishness had to be separated from their Arabness, which wasn't true for so much of their experience in Iraq. And so the project of what I'm doing here feels very healing to me, because it helps to heal that moment of rupture where a certain core part of my family's identity was removed, and now through playing this music, it feels like I'm restoring a tiny, tiny bit of it. So we're going to play another song that is very much in the ethos of like the Arab music world, also written by this same Jewish composer, Salah al-Kuwaiti. This one is called Fog in Nachel. فوق النخل فوق يابا فوق النخل فوق مدري لمع خدك يابا مدري القمر فوق والله ما أريدك بليني بالواد فوق النخل فوق يابا فوق النخل فوق مدري لمع خدك يابا مدر القمر فوق والله ما أريدك خليني بالواد بل لما مجرى المية بسلم صعبا الفرقة علي يا بشتقنا اللي هم إليهم والله ما أريدها That was fun. Okay, so this next one takes us back to ancestors not just a couple generations ago, but much, much farther back, right? And I'm talking about the ancestors that left Egypt. And what a marvel that was. In this song, this piece from the Psalms, which you might recognize from like the Passover Seder, for example, we talk about like how outlandish it was that the Israelites gained freedom. It was so outlandish. It was as outlandish as if like a flowing body of water, say the Jordan River, for example, just like stopped in its tracks and start flowing the other direction, right? Totally impossible. And so connecting with that sense of wonder is another thing that brings me closer to ancestry and closer to the wonder of the Jewish people and us being here now. בצאת ישראל ממצרים בית יעקב בעם לא עז הייתה יהודה לקודשו ישראל ממשלותה Agama Anyone have an object sitting in their house that when you see it or hold it, it reminds you of someone? For me, I was given once a dictionary that I was told belonged to my grandmother. It was like a very exciting thing. I got to hold this like old book, with the pages kind of peeling away, and they're brown, and the binding is kind of shriveling and cracking. And it was an Arabic English dictionary. It's like such a beautiful, meaningful gift that I got. And when I held it, it just gave me such a beautiful and nourishing sense of closeness to my grandmother, who was a lover of Arabic. She in fact spoke so many dialects of Arabic that she would interview on the radio women from all across the Arab world, from Egypt, from Lebanon, using their own dialect. She was just an Arabic wizard. And to hold this book, I was like, wow, this is her, just like embodied into an object. And every time I would use it, because I would use it to look up words, because why not? It's my only Arabic dictionary. I would think of her, and I would think of her using it, and I think of her love for the Arabic language. And that object really brought me so much tactile connection with her. And I was flipping through it one day, and I got to the last page, which for some reason I had never looked at before, because you know how you write your name kind of at the back of a book, maybe in like the inside cover. And I found a name there, and it wasn't hers. It was some other uncle or cousin or something, and I didn't know what to think. Like this whole time, I had been treating this object as it was hers, and all of a sudden, can I still appreciate it in the same way? And what I realized through this experience was that connection that I got with her by holding that book, when I thought it was hers, was true and real and was felt. So now I still get it, even though it's not hers. All that's to say that there's a lot of power in objects. And this next song is also very old text. It was discovered in the Cairo Geniza and is a very rare and special instance of a poem from this era being written by a woman. Scholars and historians think that this was written by the wife of Dunash ibn Labrat. And it touches on this importance of objects being imbued with memory and being able to hold us and hold our connection with people. And this will feature Leah Carno singing. סמכותם ימינו על שמאלה ובזרועו הלא שמה צמידה וסמכותם ימינו על שמאלה לזיכרון, לזיכרון, לזיכרון רדידו. והוא לקח לזיכרון, לזיכרון, לזיכרון רדידה.
חצי מלכות נגידה ילל ילל הישאר מחול ארץ ספרד ולו לקח חצי מלכות נגידה ילל ילל.
I want to take a moment to tell you a little bit about these slides and the artwork you're seeing. Can you go one slide forward, actually?
Mhm.
Yeah, this way you can kind of see it plain. This is the background of the cover for this album, Fragments, which was created by Ariel Vasson Freiberg. She's a local artist here in Boston, also half Iraqi like me, and teaches at Brandeis Studio Art. And when we collaborated to come up with a visual representation of this music, we got talking about these letters that I have from my grandfather that was written to my grandmother while they were living kind of long distance. It's a long story, but she was living in Jerusalem and he was living in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And they would write these letters back and forth to each other in the 70s. And this is one of the letters, which she did like a transfer printing process and then watercolored over it. What's really special about these letters is you can see they're written in Hebrew and Arabic. They kind of like go back and forth, sometimes in the middle of a thought, in the middle of a sentence, kind of switch back and forth between Hebrew and Arabic. And that's another one of those objects that definitely gives me a felt sense of connection with my grandfather and like these like precious little boring moments of their life that they would share with each other. And so Ariel created all of these visual representations of each song also as part of the album. So very grateful for a beautiful work of Ariel. My grandfather's brother, youngest brother, is named Razi. And for this album project, I wanted to include his voice because he has one of those voices that I'm not going to even try and imitate it because it wouldn't do it justice. His voice is piercing, so nasal, but like in a group of singers, you can always pick out his voice. And there's something so beautiful about it, and something that, to me, connects me with what appealed to me first about this music, was something a little bit strange, and that something that didn't necessarily seem beautiful to me at first. But through my process of like learning this music, becoming more embodied in it, writing these tunes, learning traditional tunes, I've learned to find that really beautiful. And this like particular aesthetic of singing, which is a little bit more nasal, a little bit more forward, real emphasis on the consonant sounds and like all of their texture and beauty. And actually even using the consonants, like even one letter like a sound, to like sing a lot of notes just on that one. So beautiful. And so I asked him when I was recording this album, what song should we sing together? Because I wanted his voice on the album. And this is the song that he suggested. It's a traditional Iraqi piyut, Iraqi liturgical devotional poem that's often used for Brit Milah circumcision ceremonies, or it could be also at Passover or on like Havdalah ceremonies about Eliyahu. So this is El Eliyahu. Oh, and if you want to hear his voice, you can go listen to the album. And on the album, you'll hear his voice. El Eliyahu, El Eliyahu, Bizchut Eliyahu. הנביא הבנה אל אליהו בזכות אליהו הנביא הבנה It's pretty easy. I want you to try with me. El Eliyahu, bizchut Eliyahu, Hanavi Havena. El Eliyahu, nice. El Eliyahu, bizchut Eliyahu, Hanavi Havena. Bo yirtom riqbo, nabas sheviti bo, lo shachav libo, gam lo ra'ashena. Bo yirtom riqbo, nabas sheviti bo, lo shachav libo, gam lo ra'ashena. ומסנות יפות ובירות בשר ותראינה למה מחליבי רבות כך שיומסנות יפות ובירות בשר ותראינה אל אליהו בזכות אליהו הנביא הבנה אל אליהו בזכות אליהו הנביא הבנה הגואל לפני דל שואל אנא האל אברהם הגבנה המלאך הגואל לפני דל שואל אנא האל אברהם הגבנה אל אליהו בזכות אליהו הנביא הבנה אל אליהו Schwitzing a little bit. So we only got a few more songs for you. This next one, again, takes us back to the farther back ancestors. And through a lens that is really important and spiritual to me, I've been playing in synagogues, like Temple Bethlehem and many others, since I was 12. And so playing violin has always been a really important part of my own spiritual expression, my own way of praying. And so when I read the line from the Psalms that say, Zameru l'Adonai bechinor, it means something like really special to me. It means like, oh, we're going to praise God with the kinor. And kinor in modern Hebrew means violin. But the psalmists likely weren't, actually definitely weren't, talking about this instrument. Because it was 2,000 years ago or more, right? And sometimes when I'm like trying to like contextualize like how long ago that was, I try and imagine what that instrument might have sounded like. It's like a violin in poetry, a kinor, in poetry, has been described in a bunch of different ways. I think it probably referred to many different instruments over time. I know there's a scholar friend of mine at Brandeis who recently showed me a poem that described a kinor as being like a bulbous pear-like instrument with a thigh sticking out of it. That's like the oud, right, obviously. I've also heard it translated as harp. What I haven't seen it translated as, though, is a spike fiddle, or what in Iraq specifically is called the joza. Joza is like linguistically related to the Hebrew word egoz, which means nut. And a joza is a coconut. And what you see there is a violin made out of a coconut. And this is a traditional instrument of Iraq. We don't have one here tonight, unfortunately. But, again, if you listen to the album, you will hear the joza, this very special, also nasal, piercing, otherworldly sound that to me, I have no proof, I'm no scholar, you know. It doesn't matter much to me what's true. What matters is like how it feels and like if it connects me. And hearing the sound of this instrument definitely connects me to like what praise might have sounded like with the chinor, Zameru l'Adonai bechinor. So, this is Zameru. Zameru, 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 Zameru l'Adonai. It's pretty easy. You want to try it with me? Zameru. Zameru. 3 times just like that. Here's the third. Zameru. And now it goes down. Zameru l'Adonai. Try it again. Zameru. Zameru. Zameru, Zameru l'Adonai. Keep doing that. Zameru, Zameru l'Adonai bechino. Zameru, Zameru l'Adonai bechino. Zameru, Zameru l'Adonai bechino. Zameru bechinor vekol zimra. Zameru, Zameru l'Adonai זמרו לאדוני בכינור, זמרו זמרו לאדוני בכינור, זמרו זמרו לאדוני בכינור, זמרו בכינור בכל זמרה, בכינור בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכינור בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכינור בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכינור בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה. Let's hear some Kino. בכינור, בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכינור, בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכינור, בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכינור, בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכינור, בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכינור, בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכינור, בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה, בכל זמרה. Rebecca Mack on the violin. Fabio Pirozzolo on the rick and the frame drum. Jesse Shevin on the darbuka. We're going to close with one more piece, or like 1.5 more pieces. And this is just how I sum it all up. That's all I have to say about it. From the fragments of forgetting, I may never find truth. From the fragments of translation, I may fumble for words. From the fragments of migration, I may never find home, never find home. May I know my worth. May I find belonging. May I feel the way I flow from past, I flow to future. From the fragments of the searching, I am finding myself. From the fragments of the journey, I am finding my way. From the fragments of the dreaming, I am finding a prayer. I'm finding a prayer. May I know my worth. May I find belonging. May I feel the way I flow from past, I flow to future. ونحن شتات يتجاذب طرف الفصام انتماء ولا انتماء ولا fragments of the stories, I can hear what's unsaid. From the fragments of the struggle, I can know my own strength. From the fragments of the voices, I can sing my own song. I'm singing my song. We're going to do one more really short one. This one's an educational song. It teaches you how to say ashtidak. Say ashtidak.
Ashtidak.
Ashtidak means bless your hands. And it's something you can say to someone who has made something really nice for you or played something really nice for you. And so I want to just say a big thank you and ashtidak to Leah, vocals, Rebecca Mack on violin, Dr. James Hazelwood-Dale on the bass, Jesse Shevin on frame and darbuka, and Fabio Pirozzolo on the rick. And a big, big thank you to Shana for bringing me back here, and to all of you. Yeah, thank you so much. This part you can sing along with too. It goes like this. Ya la 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 la. Try that. Ya la 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 la. Try that. Now put them together. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Again. La 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 la. New part. Ah la 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 la. Ah la 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 la. Let's try that. La 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 la. La 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 la. One more time that part. La 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 la. La 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 la. You got it. Here we go. For the hands that give, for the hands that reach, for the hands that guide, for the hands that share, for the hands that build, for the hands that shape, for the hands that form. I bless your hands and all that they create. Ashtidak, ashtidak, ashtidak. Ashtidak, ashtidak, ashtidak. Ashtidak, ashtidak, ashtidak. Ashtidak, ashtidak, ashtidak. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la la. Ay la 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 la. Ya la la la. Ya la 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 la. Take it away, James. Ashtidak, James, and Rebecca. Ashtidak, Jesse. Ashtidak, Fabio.
For the hands that tell, for the hands that weed, for the hands that see, for the hands that read, for the hands that feel, for the hands that hold,
Ashtidak, Leah.
for the hands that heal. I bless your hands and all that they create.
Ashtidak, ashtidak, ashtidak. Oh, ashtidak, ashtidak, ashtidak. Ashtidak, ashtidak, ashtidak. Ashtidak, ashtidak, ashtidak. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la la. Ah la 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 la. Ah la la la. Ah la 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 la.
Ashtidak. Ashtidak Yoni. I just want to say, I know the hour is late and there are some sweet treats waiting for us in the atrium, but I just want to say a big toda rabah for being so vulnerable and sharing your beautiful journey with us. I think in hearing so many different sounds tonight, we have been reminded that we are connected to something that is greater than the sum of our parts. And so I just want to really thank you for bringing us along on this journey. I hope you'll take a quick picture. I know it's Shabbos, but we are a progressive and technology-friendly synagogue. But I hope that you'll just take a picture of the QR code. It will teach you more about Yoni and what he does, and also connect you to his mailing list, perhaps to his albums on Bandcamp, so that you can take this home with you. I want to say thank you so much for being with us tonight. Please enjoy some desserts. Shabbat shalom.